The following program may contain coarse language, suggestive dialogue, and discussion of violent imagery and sexual situations. It is intended for mature listeners who can tell the difference between facts and opinions.
Are we being punked? Because I really feel like these last 2 weeks we've been punked. Or we're on some kind of show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Thoughts on Wrestling. My name is Paul Pascrillo, one of the hosts of this podcast. And with me, I have...
On the road again. Here I go. I'm on the road to WrestleMania again. It's me, Papa Tony, King of the Pizzas.
And I still don't have any free pizza, Tony. I'm a little angry.
Yeah, I don't get free pizza. Danny is cheap.
Well, you need to tell Danny to give me free pizza.
Well, yeah. I'll let Danny know.
Anyways, wow. These last 2.5 weeks have been a little busy, to say the least. And yeah, I truly do feel like WWE is trying to punk us at this point because I have no idea what's going on. There's been a lot of news. I'm sure all of you that do listen to this podcast want to know our thoughts on that. But first, we're going to talk about the Royal Rumble and what happened in those 4 matches, which I'm going to say I was very happy with it, even though it was 4 matches. But as we'll talk about going in, it seemed like the 2 Royal Rumble matches were great. And then the 2 other matches, it was just like, okay. Let's see. So the first match was the Women's Royal Rumble. And 30 women going in and out of the match. Obviously, there were going to be some surprises. And it feels like, Tony, and I don't know if you feel this way, but the last couple of years, it just seems like all the surprises go to the women's match. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I can see where that is. But at the same time, it's like Daniel Bryan said in that promo in 2019, wrestling fans are fickle. Because no matter what we give them or what they give us, we bitch and complain. Which we'll get to that in a little bit. But like I definitely agree with that because, you know, people used to be like, oh, well, we want a women's rumble, so we gave the women's rumble. Well, there's not enough people. Okay, so now we're gonna throw in surprise guests and stuff, and which I like with number 5 who came in, Jordynne Grace from TNA and the TNA Women's Champion. Good for her, and I really enjoyed seeing that collaboration between TNA and WWE in that quote unquote forbidden door, which everyone likes to talk about. What did you think of Jordynne Grace showing up in the Rumble?
Well, let's back up here. Wait a minute. We'll get to Jordynne Grace, but who returned, Tony, as number 2?
Oh yeah, that's right. Naomi, the wife of Jimmy Uso. Wonder if there's some bloodline future for her.
Yeah, so we had, well, I want to say Trinity so bad, but it's not. It's Naomi. That when you said TNA, I wanted to say that because I was like, oh no, but I can't say that. So it was her and it was Natalya as the first 2 entrants. Big pop for Naomi coming back. She actually lasted, I want to say she wasn't the longest, but she was the second longest, I think. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember. But it was interesting because, you know, everybody had been saying that Sasha Banks was going to return here at the Royal Rumble. And it seems like after these couple of weeks, the news is that she's not coming back to WWE and that she's already filmed stuff for AEW and blah blah blah. But it's interesting to see her back. I mean, everything that went down a couple years ago with Naomi and Sasha walking out because they didn't like their booking. It's interesting to see them back. I mean, obviously this is water under the bridge because Vince isn't there anymore. We'll talk about Vince later, ironically. And it's just very ironic to see her back and to see everybody wanting to have her back because she just had a run in TNA. She was the women's champion there. And yeah, I mean, it was great to see her come back and then to see the TNA women's knockout champion there. I'm going to be honest. I think she had a better showing than Miss Hardcore Country there when she was there for the Rumble. What was it, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Yeah, I mean, she did a really good job. Like from what I saw from some of the dirt sheets, she impressed a lot of people in WWE. I think she did that on purpose because she knows at some point she wants to come to the big leagues. Not that TNA is not a good place to be, but I mean, come on, if you want to be in front of, well, what was it? Like 45, I want to say 45,000 fans. I might be
like 48.
Whatever the number was, it was in the 40,000 K mark. I mean, to have that many fans and you got the TNA champion in the Rumble, you're sitting there going, "Oh shit. Okay. All right. Yeah, this works." By the way, did you also notice, and I really wanted to talk about this too, they were using TNA. The commentary team was using TNA when they were talking about her. So it's like, they didn't do that last time. So that was interesting. Another thing that to me this is brand new because I've never seen WWE use this camera before, and I'm assuming that it's a drone, but it was whatever drone or camera or whatever they were using throughout the Royal Rumble, not just at the women's match, but the other matches too. Dude, that camera angle was awesome. I keep doing that. I just look. I'm all about like animation and video and all that shit, and that right there was awesome. So yeah, I mean that was great seeing her. I'm trying to think if there was any other surprises before we got to finally see what's her name come in the match. See, it's 10:51 at night. I'm losing names as we speak in my mind.
What's her name? Jade?
Jade Cargill.
That's who you're trying to get at?
Yeah, Jade
Cargill?
Yeah.
But first, hold on. First, before we get to Jade, can we talk about that elimination that Jordan took on the apron? She took the KOD onto the apron.
Oh yeah,
That is a very, very stiff part of the ring. I mean, as someone who's taken practice and tried to like go and done tryouts, that ring is very unforgiving, and for anyone, let alone Jordan Grace, to be able to take that bump on the side of that apron, my God, that was just very impressive. And that was honestly probably one of the best spots of an elimination for the night.
Oh, it was. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I thought that, again, she did such a great job. Like I am very impressed with her. And, I think it goes to show that these wrestling companies can work with WWE in the right circumstances. And I totally think that the Royal Rumble is a perfect spot to do it at. But I would have liked to have seen like other wrestling companies try to bring their people in, or even debut some other people. But you got Naomi debuting, you got Jade's basically her first match, And of course, we had at number 30 there. Oh God, no! See, I told you this is too late for me because I'm losing names. Liv Morgan, there we go. I had to spit it out. Liv Morgan showed up at number 30, so it was great to see everybody come back. But man, Jade's debut. I mean, you couldn't have done that any better. Her throwing out Nia Jax, that was
Dude,
incredible.
that was absolutely insane. How she just picked her up with such little effort and just tossed her over the top rope like it was nothing. That is just a very impressive debut. And the part that I was very looking forward to is the tease that they did between her and Bianca Belair staring each other down. That right there has shut up and take my money written all over it for fucking WrestleMania. You could do it at SummerSlam. You could do it at any of these PLEs, and you will get shut up and take my money from me every single time, because that right there looks like a very, very, very good match that I would very much enjoy watching.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see it at this WrestleMania. And I'm going to be honest with you, Tony. I don't want to see it at this WrestleMania yet. I want Jade to get her feet on the ground, so to speak, and, get into more matches so we can see her. But yes, I'd eventually like to see that. The other thing that was interesting too, and you could hear it, but you couldn't at the same time. I think she has her AEW entrance music still, which is incredible. And I like the fact that
I did hear it. I do believe it was "A Storm Is Coming" or something. Or the one that she used. So maybe, you know what? Maybe it was one of those things where like it was a song that she used and it wasn't something that AEW owned. It's like the Hardy Boys theme song. It's not a song that WWE owns. It's one that they had made, like they found. So it could be something that it's not exclusive to just one company, and maybe it's something that can be used multi-way.
yeah. So basically, the three that it came down to was Bayley, Jade, and Liv. Liv kicked out Jade, and then as she's kicking out Jade, Bayley kicked out Liv, and Bayley won the Royal Rumble. For me, the women's Royal Rumble was probably the best of the night. I thought they did a really good job. I thought it was really well executed. And, I think I said on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it at this point, the other day that I gave it like an 8 out of 10. Or maybe I gave it a 7. I don't remember what I did. But I think 8 is a good score for it, because to me, it was a really good match. I don't think it was perfect by any means. I'm not going to be a Dave Mesger and be like, oh, it only gets 1 star. I think he gave it 3 stars, and I'm like, what match were you walking?
Oh, okay. So then can I plug our casual, just the casual hashtag fuck Dave Meltzer, because fuck you, Dave Meltzer. Just just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that dude does not know how to rate these matches at all. So I give it an 8 out of 10.
It would be 7 stars and 100 out of 100 if it was over there in the Tokyo Dome. Do.
Oh, Tony, what do you rate that? What do you rate the women's Royal Rumble match?
I thought it was great. I give it a solid 8 out of 10 as well. Maybe 8.5. For me, when the Kabuki Warriors came out, I believe they were like within the first 10 each. To come out with Bayley, I was like, oh, okay, Bayley's gonna have backup for the majority of this match. And when they got eliminated, like before, I want to say the 20th entry even came in, I started to doubt the fact that maybe I was like, you know what? Maybe Bayley may not win this match. She may not win the Rumble. Like, maybe they go with a surprise. Like, maybe they go with someone else. And she just kept rocking in that match, and she did break the record at 63 minutes.
She did.
So she set the record and broke it. What was Rhea Ripley's, and it was just great to see Bayley win because like the storyline for me is right there. It was, now that the Kabuki Warriors and they're in EO's ear, they're like trying to like listen, Bayley's a fool, like they essentially basically did say that, and they turned EO against Bayley, and I honestly wonder where Dakota Kai's loyalties lie. Is she with EO and the Kabuki Warriors in that version of Damage Control, or are they going to kick her out too?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
It's definitely I'm definitely interested in seeing that. Honestly, some of my favorite parts of the match were Bayley just being vocal throughout the match. Constantly looking over at Michael Cole and like calling him an idiot and stuff. Like I think there was one point where she was laying on the back of Nia's back and like kind of into the ropes, and she's like, "Look at you, you stupid idiot, Michael Cole." And it's just hilarious, like that she interacts that well with the announcers, and I feel like that is something that is, I don't know if it's a lost art, but it's something that feels nice. It's fresh. You know what I mean? It's funny seeing like these people interact with, like for instance, when Mr. Kennedy would always introduce himself. Do you remember he would always take the microphone from Tony Chimmel and insult Tony Chimmel while he did it? Because he always said, "Chimmel, you can't do this right. Let me just show you how it's really done." I always thought that was funny, having like a wrestler be like interact with like an announcer or a ring announcer, like almost breaking a fourth wall, you could say. I don't know if I would be using it in the right terms, but essentially breaking that wall down between that, like, like just having that interaction. But like I said, it was nice seeing Bayley. I was right, but now that story is there for EO. We're gonna see Bayley versus EO at WrestleMania 40 in Philly at the Link. So that's one WrestleMania match that's set up, and I'm excited for that. Then we moved into the Fatal 4-Way, where yours, mine, ours, the wonderful Tribal Chief retained, and that was one hell of a match too. I mean, I don't know how you're saying that it was meh. That match was very good. I mean, you had triple stack pins, you had RKOs being handed out to everyone. You had Yaz, you had Styles Clash, you had phenomenal elbows, forearms, whatever it is. And unfortunately, yeah, we had our boy Solo showing up and doing what Solo does. But overall, that match was very, very good. I'm not surprised by the end, nor do I think any of us really should be. But I was like I said, I was very impressed with like the constant flow of the match and how things like the spots and like how everything just worked out and felt right. What say you?
I think the match was, for being a Fatal 4-Way match, it wasn't. It was just okay. It wasn't like, I wasn't as engaged as I was in the women's or the men's Royal Rumble match. It was okay. It was. I'll be honest with you. It was a little bit. There was a lot more engagement with that match from the crowd, so it made it better in that sense. I don't know what it is, but it seems like at parts in the women's World Rumble, even though, like I said, that I thought that was the best match of the night, I thought there were people that were kind of just like, out of it, but at the same time, this match, I don't know. I don't know what to put my finger on, but it was like it seemed like it went faster than it should have, and maybe that was by design. I don't know.
I did feel like it did go faster than like I would have expected it to. I do agree with that. Like it did feel like once certain things happened, it just like went faster and faster and faster. Like
Yeah.
it ended faster than I felt like we were expecting. I felt like there was going to be more interference from Solo, and that I felt like there was going to be more like finishers and kickouts and what have you.
Right. Yeah, I felt like it for a fatal four-way match, like you said, there was a little bit more. I didn't really. I was kind of glad that they didn't use the interference. So when I say like this match for me was like a 7 out of 10, it's an okay match. It wasn't bad. It wasn't the best that it could have been. But there were definitely times where I was like, oh yeah, oh okay, I like this. Oh yeah, I like this. And I also felt like it didn't take momentum away from certain people, even though I do feel like, even though the crowd wants LA Knight, and we all know that, I feel like some of his momentum has been slowly coming off of him, because if you look at the t-shirt sales, he's no longer one of the top 5 sellers of shirts right now. So I'm hoping that they're going to fix that after this match, because he definitely deserves it, the work that this dude's been putting in. And I think, again, like you said, I felt like there probably should have been a little bit more to it. There should have been, I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is a little bit more action, a little bit more, just being a little bit more slowed down. Because, I mean, there's 4 matches in this pay-per-view. I understand, like, it went from 8 to 11:30, if I remember correctly. And I understood that, okay, fine, you probably want more time for the men's Royal Rumble. I completely understand. But you're also talking about a title match that's a fatal 4-way. I don't know about you, Tony, but it could have been a lot better. And I'm not saying it was the worst, but I've definitely seen better fatal 4-ways, and I'm sure you can agree with me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have seen my a better share of fatal 4-ways, triple threats, all those. I did feel like we just said, it did feel like it moved at a faster pace than what we were used to. And maybe it was to, like you said, to make sure that they still had enough time for the men's Rumble and for the Owens and Paul match. So I mean,
Paul match?
Not you.
Well, you said Paul match. I'm like, what do you mean Paul match?
The Logan Paul.
Oh, right. I got you. Yeah. I mean, that was the next match. So I guess we can talk about that. That was that's the lowest rated match for me. I will say that I was pissed off that night, and I said on Twitter it's a 1 out of 10. It's not a 1 out of 10, but I would say it's a 5 or 6. I'll go more towards 6, and the reason is because it had a disqualification. This was such a great match. I'll be honest with you, Tony. I thought this match was better than the Fatal 4-Way. And then they do this stupid shit with this brass knuckles again. And it's not like it's not that Logan Paul used the brass knuckles. It was Kevin Owens used the brass knuckles. And as the referee is counting to 3, he sees him with the brass knuckles and disqualifies him. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, we both said that it was going to be Logan Paul at the end, I believe. Didn't you say that?
Yes, I did.
So, I mean, I think we both know that this was going to happen, and I guess maybe this was the only way that they could do it, so that way Logan Paul would win. But I absolutely, I will tell you right now, when a match uses interference, especially with a weapon, and this kind of result happens after such a great match, I have to rate it lower, and it's a 6 out of 10 for me. It this is a match that should have been done a lot better. I understand that you wanted Logan Paul to come out on top. Me and you basically predicted that this was going to happen. Somehow he was going to get, win this match, whether it be clean or disqualification. And sure enough, it happened in a disqualification. So I don't know what you rate it, Tony, but I hope you agree with me that this was probably the lowest rated match of the night.
I hate when a good match ends in a disqualification. Like you said, it definitely takes away from everything leading up in the match. But at the same time, I do like a good old fashioned kind of storyline. So now it leads into another rematch because obviously this isn't done. And I think this time in the rematch we'll see maybe more of a cleaner finish the next time, because I feel like the man to take the belt off of Logan Paul is going to be someone that we had just mentioned and that needs to stay hot. I think it's going to be LA Knight, who takes the belt off of Logan Paul, because they want to keep the momentum with him. You want to keep the fans interested. He needs a championship, I feel like. And what better championship than to give him than the U.S. championship if we're not going to be passing the belt off of our tribal chief anytime soon. But going back to the Logan Paul Kevin Owens match, I think the only thing, honestly, that kind of saved it too was the post-match beatdown
I was going to say that.
From Owens onto Logan Paul. I think him putting him behind through the table was classic. Classic Owens for one. And it was classic, now, okay, the face just got screwed over by the heel because the ref saw what I did, but he didn't see why we got to this point. So now I'm pissed, and now you're going to get the brunt end of it. And who doesn't love watching KO powerbomb someone through an announce table? If anything, who doesn't love watching the announce table get pummeled?
Well, we like the Spanish announce table to get pummeled, but yeah, sure, we can go with that. But yes, that I was actually going to say that you read my mind. That saved
Spanish
the match, I think.
Table for the Hall of Fame, by the way.
I would agree with that. So yeah, that definitely saved the match. That's why it gets a 6 out of 10, because he put somebody through a table at the end. So, he put Logan Paul through the table, I should say. So yeah, that pretty much saved it there. And then we get into the men's Royal Rumble match, which is the final match of the night. Again, they're using this, and it was in all 4 matches. So I should have said this in the last, when we were talking about the last 2 matches, but that camera angle that they keep using with the drone, I think it is, at least it looks like it's a drone. I love that. And by the way, TKO, keep adding your touches to this, because I'm starting to really like all of your touches that you're making to this. Obviously, me and you had predicted a lot more surprises. There weren't really any surprises. I don't think we predicted Ricochet was going to be in there, so that was one. Who else? Obviously at number 30, and we spaced when we were talking about the Royal Rumble. I should have said Sami Zayn, but for some odd reason, I don't know why his name was not in my brain at the time when we were talking about Royal Rumble. I thought about him being in it, but it just wasn't on my brain for some odd reason. So it was nice to see him back.
I think I mentioned him as one of my surprise returns. One of the ones that was a nice surprise to see was a little bit of a preview for a main roster call up was one half of the Wolf Dogs, Braun Breaker, the badass nephew of the big booty daddy Freakzilla Scott Steiner. So that was nice to see future star come up. And rumor has it that all of Braun's spots were all spots that would have belonged to a certain beast.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that. I'm sure we'll get to the beast shortly. But it was cool seeing Braun Breaker make his debut, and but honestly, probably one of the best spots in the Royal Rumble for me at least, and I feel like it is the spot that's talked about was the first ever hot tag in a Royal Rumble. Seeing R-Truth on the apron wanting
Oh,
to
yeah.
tag him into the Rumble. That had to be one of my favorite moments of the night.
Well, let's not forget that R-Truth went out for the women's Royal Rumble too, and then
Oh God! Completely interrupted Valhalla's entrance.
and then she got knocked out and almost knocked him out for it. So that was
Right.
hilarious. What else? Who did it come down to? It came down to Punk, Cody, Gunther was in the final four, right? And then it was Drew because Sammy got knocked out by Drew. And then Drew got knocked out, and then Gunther got knocked out, and then it came down to Cody and Punk. So here's my thing, like, it's not as good as the women's Royal Rumble because there wasn't as many surprises. And I'm going to be honest with you, WWE should change that because I think they should try to get more surprises for the men's Royal Rumble match because that's what they did for years. And now it just seems like they've kind of moved away from that. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but that's the Royal Rumble. There's supposed to be some surprises. And it just didn't really feel like that. So obviously that for me took away from it a little bit. It doesn't take away all of it because that would be stupid. The match was fine. I mean, I didn't see really any problems until we got down to Cody and CM Punk. We know now why it seemed like it was a little bit slower, so I give this match a little bit more mercy than it had when I originally saw it. But towards the end of the match, Drew, before he got thrown out, it seems like injured Punk. And now CM Punk is out for what? Probably 6 to 9 months again with another, what was it, a tricep injury again?
I think he tore his tricep on when Drew DDT'd him, but I think he's only out 4 to 6 months.
Yeah. So I hate that sucks for CM Punk because I know he wanted to come in here with a bang and then he gets injured again. And I think WWE did a great job in making sure that he doesn't wrestle. You know what I mean? Like how they usually don't have these wrestlers that they're trying to protect wrestle so much. So that kind of sucks that dude had to go out. But yeah, I think it kind of explains why Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble because obviously CM Punk was injured and he can't go on after that.
But can we talk about how Drew is absolutely carrying multiple feuds right now?
Can we talk about the fact that Drew McIntyre has become my favorite heel right now? Because
like the amount of petty that this man just has going on in every feud, the whole Punk, I prayed for this and it happened.
Let me just say this: if CM Punk, and listen to me on this for a minute, if Drew McIntyre is not signing a new contract with WWE and is still doing this, I'm in shock because dude is putting in like 110% into this angle, and I am here for it. I don't want to jump too far ahead because obviously we're talking about the Royal Rumble, and then we're going to talk about the press conference because there's just one thing I definitely want to talk about that. And of course, Vince McMahon. But dude literally has a shirt now that's, by the way, on sale in the WWE shop that has him in that meme where he's pointing to a tombstone of CM Punk. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is pure gold right now. So if this dude, I'm going to tell you this right now, Tony, if this dude does not sign a new deal with WWE and he goes out like this, like I'm going to be in shock because this dude is like putting in the work to have all of this go over.
I don't see a world where good old Papa H lets Drew walk without signing a nice deal. No. Because Papa H knows what is best for business.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what is your, because I already pretty much said that my score is a 7. What's your score for the men's Royal Rumble?
You know, I used to be really big on the surprise returns and would want people always to return. But then I looked at it like, you know, I love having the competitors that are on the rosters now be on there because these are the people that have put in the time and effort into everything. So for me, I was actually kind of glad that there weren't a whole lot of like returns and stuff. But overall, I would give it, you know, like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 because I really enjoyed watching it. One of my favorite parts was when he said, when CM Punk had him up and said, "I didn't wait 10 years to come back and lose to Dusty's kid." And just him saying, I was just like, wow, like that's kind of at first in my mind, I was like, wow, that's kind of heelish of him. Like, are we going to see like a bitter CM Punk win the Rumble? Is he going to be kind of bitter towards everything? Like, I was interested to see where that was going to go. But, you know, unfortunately, alas, Punk did, you know, with like we covered just minutes ago, he did tear his tricep. So that is unfortunate. But it was just so cool to see it come down to those 4 individuals, and now potentially those 4 are going to have lasting storylines in the future, because you know damn well that Punk and Drew storyline is just getting going, and he is cooking galore with that. I think at some point we're going to see Cody and Gunther do battle for a championship. Which championship? I don't know. Because we're going to get to our good friend, Mr. Cody Rhodes, very shortly. But it was nice to see Cody continue finishing the story. And it's nice to see, you know, back-to-back Rumble winner. I thought that was pretty cool. That, you know, they had mentioned that earlier in the show, too, that only Michaels, Hogan, and Austin had been the only ones to run it back-to-back on a Rumble win. So, you know, to see Cody Rhodes get that second opportunity now, we're going to see what he's going to do with it. We're going to see who he's going to challenge. Let's just jump right to that then. You know,
Well, wait a minute.
Who do you think he's going to challenge?
Well, wait a minute. So we're going to go into this in a whole different episode later because I have a lot of things to say about what's going on with that, and that's probably going to take up an hour in itself. So what I want to talk about first, so we had, just before the Royal Rumble happened, we had this, I think the lawsuit was already ongoing, but they had filed a motion in court that Vince McMahon hadn't paid this woman that he paid hush money to. I guess he only paid her $1 million, is what I'm hearing. And
Oh, Vince.
basically he had violated the NDA because he didn't give her all the money yet. So that came back up, and as part of that, which I have to look this up. And by the way, when I say this, I need people to understand that I don't mean this in the way that you think that I'm about to say this, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to reveal details when an NDA is involved. So when they revealed that, obviously whatever we already knew before with, Vince being scum in a male chauvinist and pretty much close to a rapist as you can get, all of that stuff, unfortunately. Now he's sex trafficking one woman, and apparently Brock Lesnar was part of it, which we kind of alluded to. Basically, Slim Jim was going to put a pause on their advertising and said, listen, if you're not going to get rid of Vince McMahon, we're not sponsoring Royal Rumble like we're supposed to. Within 24 hours, Vince was out. Now, why Vince wasn't out before, who knows? And again, what I'm talking about with this NDA, just so everybody understands, I'm not sure what the law says, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to reveal details of anything unless the NDA comes off. So that confuses me a lot. I'm not saying that justifies anything that Vince did, because Vince clearly is a piece of garbage, and we now I understand completely why his daughter left when he forced his way back on the WWE board before TKO bought WWE. But the reason I brought all that up is because afterwards, during the Royal Rumble press conference, everybody, there was at least 3 news agencies that were asking the same question to Triple H. And yes, Triple H could have answered this a lot better. I'm more angry at his PR department for not sitting him down and saying, listen, this is exactly what you need to say. Because you knew this was coming. You knew this question was going to be asked by one of those agencies, news outlets, dirt sheets, whatever. And your answer to it was, I didn't see the lawsuit. I didn't read the lawsuit. I've been concentrating on Royal Rumble and everything that's been going on this week. And that's all I have to say about it at the moment. Not the best response. But what pissed me off is that there was this like groundswell of people in the wrestling community getting pissed off about Triple H's response. And I'm like, you realize this dude is married to the daughter of this piece of garbage. And they've been dealing with this shit for 2-3 years already. They got kids that are his grandchildren.
I was just about to jump on that and say, like Declan McMahon, for instance, goes to the University of Indiana, plays on their football team. Like it went from him being, oh, Vince McMahon is your grandpa, to, oh, Vince McMahon is your grandpa. Like, all of Shane's kids, all 3 of Hunter and Paul and Stephanie's daughters, they're all going to be impacted from this. Not only that, but Maya Lesnar, Brock's daughter, who is a absolute savage of a track and field star at Colorado State, from what I've seen. How are they going to be impacted by this? How, what's their futures? Is it going to be like these football teams, the college team, going to be like, are they going to look at him a little differently now? Are his teammates going to look at him a little bit differently now? Like these poor girls, they're in high school. are their friends going to look at them differently now? Like it's sad because Vince's sick, perverted ways are now going to impact innocent people's lives even more than they needed to be.
And here's another thing too. It came out later that week, because this was Friday, Royal Rumble was Sunday, and then that week following Royal Rumble,
No,
was
Drew. No, Drew. It was the Royal Rumble was, or no, sorry, Gunther. The Royal Rumble was on Saturday, Gunther.
Oh, that's right. I see, dude. I've been watching wrestling so long that it's been imprinted in my brain that it was Sunday. Also, NXT is still doing their pay-per-views on Sunday, so it's kind of like, stop confusing me. But anyways, yes, I'm sorry. So it was on Saturday, following that week, starting with Monday. One of the things that came out, whether this is true or not, and I take everything with a grain of salt because I never know what's true or what's not true. It was said that Vince did a lot of this stuff. This is what's being put out there. He did a lot of this stuff without the knowledge of anybody in WWE and signed as if he was WWE. I mean, there again, he owned WWE, so I guess you could say that, but I think that's important too, because now it makes you sit there and go, well, can you really blame the WWE if nobody else knew about it? Until obviously a couple years ago when all this came to a head, So for me, when you're suing Vince McMahon and WWE, I don't know about the WWE part because I don't see that being the issue. What I see being the issue is it being against Vince and Vince having to be the one to pay this and to, go to jail. By the way, it's also been told that the federal government was still investigating this. So somewhere down the line, Vince was probably going to get kicked to the curb anyways. And, I just feel really bad because I'm going to be honest with you, Tony. If my father, he's dead. He's obviously been dead for 2 years now. If my father had done any of this kind of stuff, and this has been going on for 2-3+ years, and another thing came out in the media, would I want to read that? No. I already know that my father's a piece of shit. I don't need to read anything more and upset myself, And that's why I feel for Triple H. I'm sure after that press conference, he's probably read it. And again, you can't sit here and say that Vince McMahon did these things because we really don't know. We really don't know if he really did these things or he's just being accused of these things. Do we know he's a pervert? Yes. Do we know that he treated women like shit at one point during his reign over the WWE? Yes, we know that. We know he treated women like shit. And at a certain point, it turned the page to where, that got squashed and stopped because he can't do that. Thankfully. Do we know that it went to the extent of him maybe raping women and human trafficking like it's being alleged? Who knows? We don't know. We may find out here soon. But the bottom line is I'm glad that they finally cut the cord because clearly Vince needed to go. I mean, the only reason he came back was because he had the power to put himself back into power on the WWE board just before TKO purchased them. And it just is sad that Triple H is being sucked into this when he probably had no idea about this until, like I said, a couple years ago. I mean, if you remember when he did that one interview with, and I can't think of what his name is. He works for BT Sports. I want to say his first name's Ariel, right? Ariel Helwani, I want to say. I could be wrong about that. But when he did that one interview, he talked about how him and his wife and his kids were on the way to go on this vacation that they had planned, because this is when Stephanie took her first leave of absence. And all of a sudden they get a phone call from the board or Nick Khan or all of them and said, hey, would you guys mind coming back and doing this? Because somebody needs to run. We just got rid of Vince. We need to have somebody run this. You know, and that's when Stephanie stepped up to the plate and took over. Triple H took the reins of creative. And that's when we started the golden age. And then Vince came back and started to try to fuck with things. And thankfully, TKO purchased WWE and said, no, Vince, you can't do anything creatively anymore. But it makes me think that the reason they went on that vacation was because they needed to get the fuck out of civilization. Because, again, your father, in Stephanie's case, or father-in-law in Triple H's case, is accused of all this shit. I wouldn't want to answer questions. So I give Triple H a lot of grace. I think people on X in particular and social media in general went way too far. And at some of the dirt sheets, I think they went way too far too. They started acting like they're going after an NFL star like Stephon Diggs and trying to make a narrative that's not there. You know, it just felt really weird. And luckily it seems to have calmed down and gone away, especially after all that stuff came out. Like, nobody probably knew about this. So I'm glad about that. But I think a lot of people handled it wrong in the wrestling community. And they should have given a little bit more grace to Triple H and understanding, because he has kids. He has a whole family that has been going through this for so many years. And they should have handled it a lot better. It made me see how bad the wrestling community can be. Well, it got worse, and we'll talk about that in the next part of this episode, which will be part 2. But
the toxicity of wrestling fans. Next,
oh my god,
dude, wrestling fans are the most toxic fan base, and I'm one of them. I'll be honest. There's times where I've wanted something and I bitched and complained. I got it, and I bitched and complained that I got it. But you know, like you said, we'll get to them. We'll get to them later in the next part. Just remember that we can all now look back at 2019 and be like, Daniel Bryan was right. We are fickle.
And by the way, we always have to bring AEW into this. Apparently, whatever Tony's big announcement is supposed to be tomorrow, he was supposed to announce it last week, and he couldn't because of everything that's been going on in WWE, and he didn't want it to kind of get buried. And I'm sitting there laughing my ass off because I'm like, you're about to make an announcement tomorrow, which is Wednesday, which is probably, you know, Sasha Banks is coming to AEW, and I can't think of the wrestler's name from New Japan Pro Wrestling that might be coming to AEW. And then there's another women's wrestler that's coming from NWA. So it seems like it's going to be revolving around that. Hell, it may even be like a women's tournament. And he's just trying to boost the women's division, which, again, Tony, I'll give you props if you finally fucking do it, because your women's division is trash right now, at least in AEW. Maybe that's what's happening, and hopefully it is, because, and maybe we should talk about this, because finally it's coming to a head, and what I predicted was correct. I said, Tony, on Twitter before we started doing this podcast, and I quote, AEW, it's nice that you did 70 to 80K overseas. Great. Your numbers aren't as good here in the United States. And they're dwindling. And I was right, because now they're only using half of these arenas. Like, it's so bad, Tony, that it's only the bottom half of these arenas and maybe a little bit more of the upper part on the one side, and the hard camera side there's nobody on. That's bad, Tony. That's really fucking bad. Like, I don't know what to say to this dude at this point. Like, you got to change your product, because you got WWE over here killing it. You're going to make an announcement on Wednesday, and then it's going to get destroyed on Thursday by WWE's press conference. I don't know what you need to do, but you need to do something with your women's division, and you certainly need to go overseas and start doing stuff over there and selling out arenas over there, because that's where your money is overseas right now. Just do what people think you should do, and your product will be a lot better, and you'll be getting more money. You're not, and this is the outcome. If Edge isn't going to change people's minds to come to start watching AEW, Sasha Banks ain't going to do it. Somebody from NWA ain't going to do it. Somebody from New Japan Pro Wrestling certainly is not going to do it. And don't get me wrong, that's nothing against those wrestlers, but if you're not going to AEW just for the paycheck, which I'm sure that's why Sasha Banks is going there, at this point there's not a point. I mean, it's like the old adage of, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it really matter? It's the same thing with wrestling. If a really good wrestling match happens and nobody watches it, was it really a good match? So,
right. I completely agree. It's funny, for once it wasn't me shitting on AEW and Tony Khan.
Well, no, I have my, again, we really need to do an episode in between. It'll probably be after WrestleMania season, where we can kind of go into depth of what my thoughts have been, and maybe by that point it'll actually be better. I doubt it, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's just I have to mention it because it's right out there, and it's a good time. It's a good thing to mention at the end of the podcast, because I don't really want to get into what we're going to be talking in part 2, which is the other part of the news. And I also want to mention that, just to kind of tease things, it's very interesting to see what's happening right now, and clearly what WWE is trying to do and being very successful at. So, with Cody Rhodes. So you'll hear our thoughts about that. We're going to record that tomorrow night as part 2 of this mega news of 2 to 3 weeks that we went through, including our Royal Rumble rundown. But wrestling has been crazy, Tony, in the WWE. I mean, there's other things going on out there. I mean, TNA seems to be surging a little bit more. Midget wrestling is doing better than AEW, which is weird. The ratings, at least for Rampage and Collision, it's beating it, which is hilarious. What else? I can't think of his name, but some dude is leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Tony Khan is really happy about it. And
I think it's Okada.
Yeah.
But I also heard that Okada is interested in WWE too.
So he's starting a new promotion, but there's a rumor that new promotion could be in NXT Japan, because WWE has been clamoring to get into that market. So
what you're saying, basically what you're saying is, if NXT Japan becomes a thing and Okada has something to do with it, Tony Khan is going to have another child-size meltdown.
Well, he already did.
No, did he already have one for 2024? Did he have his first one for the year yet?
Well, I mean, he didn't have like a conniption fit. Like let me see what his exact comment was. I have to take a look here, so give me 2 seconds here. Here it is. because I'm sure it's right here. Oh, there it is. So he says, first tweet is bye Rossi, and then there's a gift where it says the big goodbye. And then his next tweet is another GIF. It says it's clearly a case of industrial espionage. And then there's another gift after that that says the feds had an undercover agent in Dr. Shrek's office. So it's like, okay, did you not really like this guy? I don't even know who this guy is. So it's like, okay. I don't know what to say.
Tony Khan's he's a goof. My stepdad, Big Ted, he would always just describe people as like oafs, or he's a goof. Look at this guy, he's a dud. You know, look at him, he's a goof. That's how Big Ted would describe people. And I feel like if he saw Tony Khan, he would just be like, look at this fucking goofball right here. Just something like that. Just completely just going in on Tony Khan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do with Tony Khan. I just think that he needs to have Twitter taken away from him, because sometimes, look, I don't want to degrade the guy anymore that he gets degraded, but like, it's like this dude is addicted to his phone and social media, and whenever something pisses him off, he has to go and tweet something. And it's like, you don't need to. Just shut up. You know, if you have opinions, then you have opinions. You could talk to somebody about it. But yeah, I mean, I just think he needs to shut up and just let it be. So it's not going to change. He's going to do this again with something. And, you know, I find it funny because WWE just ignores him. It's like, you know, there was one thing speaking of AEW, there was one thing at the press conference that struck me and made me think that Triple H has tried to reach out to other promotions, even maybe AEW, to see if maybe they wanted to drop somebody in to the Women's Royal Rumble.
Was it the Forbidden Door thing he made fun of?
Yeah. It was that, but it was also it wasn't that particular comment. It was the fact that he was talking about I want to say he was talking about the TNA president, and he was saying how easy it was to work with them and make this happen. And it made me sit there and go, was that like a jab at somebody else that they tried to go bring in for the Royal Rumble, and that promotion was like, no, fuck you, you have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G before they come in?
I heard that WWE wanted Daddy Ass.
Oh, for the Royal Rumble?
Yeah. They had. I don't know how true it is. I know it's all hearsay, you know, between internet and the IWC, but I did hear that Daddy Ass was high on their list. They wanted to bring in to be in the Rumble for a spot.
Yeah, I mean, see, here's the thing, like, and I think this is a good thing to end on. For me, like, if I'm Tony Khan and I see how WWE just promoted TNA just by simply having the commentators talk about their champion, their Knockouts women's champion, it just makes me sit there and go, well, why wouldn't you want to send one of your women from AEW? That's the champ. You could send, which I don't know. You could send, what was her name's Toni Storm, right? Toni Storm, or did she change her name again? You could send her.
I love Toni Storm.
So you could send Toni Storm to WWE and have her come in as the champ too. You know, like, you could do the exact same thing that they just did with TNA, and they probably would do it. You're not going to get, oh, by the way, watch the AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. You're not going to get that. because even WWE didn't do that, you know. And I mean, it's not out of the possibility for them to work with each other either, because I mean, look at what they did with Jericho coming in that one time and talking to Steve Austin on his podcast. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility that things can't happen between these two. But I also feel like it might be a frustration on their end. You know, WWE sending people from NXT to Japan. So we're seeing that. You know, it seems like WWE is trying to do special things here and there that they can with other wrestling promotions. And again, I'm all for that. But I'm hoping that, like, if WWE was to say to Tony Khan, "Hey, is Britt Baker available?" Let me blow your mind here for a second, Tony. Is Britt Baker available? You with me? So you ask for Britt Baker because she's arguably probably your best women in AEW. You're telling me you wouldn't want to have her in the Royal Rumble and talking about AEW wrestling? Like,
I mean, I would, but
yeah.
we know the child would not, because he doesn't. You know what? Tony Khan he kind of reminds me of Vince McMahon. He's so fucking stubborn and dumb about things that he doesn't want to, like, do business with other companies because he's afraid of how it'll make him look. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, he doesn't want to look like he gave in to WWE. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that he doesn't want to do business with other wrestling companies. He has done business with TNA. He has done a lot of business with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I mean, you can't really say that.
Specifically, I'm saying, like, he would be foolish enough to say, no, I'm not, no Britt Baker. Like, dude, you can get all eyes on one of your top stars from the biggest company in the world.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me, like you said, like, what if all of a sudden some, like, little girl's watching wrestling, she's watching the Rumble, and Britt Baker, DMD, comes to show, like, oh, who's this? Oh, she's a dentist and she's a wrestler? Because they probably would have promoted something like that. But they also, I'm not gonna lie, I could see them kind of maybe putting a little cheap shot. Well, she's definitely not related to Dr. Isaac Yankem, that's for sure. I can see something, like a little shot like that. But it would be great for them to be able to cross promote with AEW. And I think Triple H would always be open to it. It's Tony Khan that's got to be willing to be open as well.
And, I think we may eventually see TNA and WWE, and I don't see WWE having TNA matches on their product, but I do see some of the female wrestlers in the wrestling division, in the women's division, I should say, from WWE maybe having a match there at some point. I see that happening. And I think, and again, I'm all for that. I think, it's all about what you can do. And there again, I think TNA Wrestling is on something that TKO owns. So again, it's one of those interesting things where you sit there and you go, oh, okay. So did you just do this because TKO owns, I think it's like the streamer or something that TNA has? Or did you do this because it was just something fun? It sounds like it was just something fun to do, and she killed it. Like, I can't. There is no way that woman is not, when her contract is up, WWE is not going to make an offer for her. There's no way. There's no way that she is not getting an offer from WWE. I completely see that happening. and I see her in that product. I see her in the women's division in WWE probably within the next 5 years. Sometime in the next 5 years, she's going to be in WWE. I see it happening. And by the way, I do think that WWE needs to have the TNA wrestling or TNA Knockouts champion was the Impact Women's champion. I think it was before, but whatever. I do think that they should keep doing that with TNA. I think that's fun. I think it's great. I think AEW should allow somebody to go over there. I think New Japan Pro Wrestling should do it as well. You know, it's the Royal Rumble is a fun time. Those are the kind of surprises I want to see in the Royal Rumble. And I think, and by the way, I'm not just talking about the women's division either. Bring the men over too. Bring a wrestler over. Like Ominous Man. Bring him over from AEW. Who else?
Could you imagine during the Rumble them just the entire Tropicana field just chanting, "Oh, scissor me, daddy"?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Like that right there. That's just good cross promotion.
It is. I mean, you want to fill your arena, right? You want to be able to do like instead of doing 2,000, 3,000 people in an arena that holds like 12,000, you want to sell that whole 12,000 out, right? What's a better way to do it? You know what I mean? Like, it just goes to show why maybe these big name wrestlers have left. Why a Cody Rhodes has left. Why a Jade Cargill has left. Why some of these other AEW wrestlers are possibly going to WWE when they're done. You know, and don't get me wrong, you're gonna see some of these What's that?
Andrade.
Oh, Andrade. I completely forgot about Andrade. We didn't talk about him either. He was in the men's Royal Rumble as well. See, this is what happens when it's late at night. So I mean, we're gonna see him. We're gonna see him at some point wrestling again. We're probably gonna get some of the AEW wrestlers that went from WWE to AEW coming back. I don't see a Jon Moxley coming back anytime soon, but that's because he has more of a invested place in AEW. WWE is not going to bring back Chris Jericho at all, so that's probably never going to happen. I mean, maybe 5 years down the road, but I mean, he's in the same category as fucking Vince McMahon, so maybe not as bad, but he's in the same department. And the fact that he's still wrestling on that product makes me look at Tony sideways and go, "What are you doing?" But again, we're going on a tangent here about this. But yeah, I mean,
we a fucking mouse in your pocket. You've been going on this tangent.
Hey, listen. I wanted to record a podcast last week.
This is your tangent.
I mean, is anything that I'm saying wrong?
No, but
yeah. Well, there you go.
I got mac and cheese waiting for me.
Oh, excuse me. Tony needs to eat. I'm sorry. Maybe you should have brought a pizza home with you.
No, I had pizza for lunch. I got the delicious Weggy's mac and cheese.
Jesus Christ. See, you shouldn't be mentioning Wegmans unless they're paying us sponsorship money, Tony.
Oh, no, see, I didn't say the full name. I just said Weggy's.
Everybody knows what Wegmans is.
Yeah, even the people, even my people in Florida who listen to us. Shout out BTC, baby, behind the curtain.
Sponsor us. We need money. Anyways, but yeah, I think we'll end it there. This is kind of going to be a two-parter because a lot of the stuff that we've talked about is going to lead into this next episode. So you're going to actually get 2 episodes in a row, basically. Oh, more work for Paul. Great. So look forward to our second part of this episode of all this news that's come down from WWE over the last couple days. I mean, we probably may even talk about AEW news depending on whatever this stupid announcement is, because Tony likes to make announcements about announcements about announcements. So who knows what this one's going to be. Anyways, so look forward for that episode coming. And, you can always let us know what you think when you see our posts up at places. You can also leave a comment on our podcast, on any of the podcast apps out there. Of course, you can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, you can listen to our podcast as well on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Geeky Inc. Productions. Our podcast is there. It's being fed into that YouTube feed every single week, so you can listen to our podcast there as well. And
the word of the night is podcast.
Yes, podcast. It's always the word of the night. No, it's sponsorship. Give me money. Anyways, yeah, so hopefully there won't be any more news before we do this other episode, because that's just going to tire me out. But Tony, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at 89_tones. Or you can find me at Barrington Wegmans making pizza. Yep. You can find me there. Where can they find you, Paul?
Well, while I'm not yawning, because I was just yawning while you said that. So you can find me on Twitter/X at Paul Pascrillo. You can hear me every once in a while on the Toonami Faithful podcast, as you all know. And of course, you can email me if you have questions, comments, concerns, or want to bitch about anything, or want to talk about wrestling. I'm open to that. You can email me, Paul Pascrillo at ToonamiFaithful.com, and let me know what you think about our podcast. Give your feedback, talk about things. I know some people were talking on Tony's Facebook about, the podcast doesn't sound, there could be some things better. And I'm like, well, Tony's using his phone and I have to equal out the audio. So yeah, if Tony over here had a better setup, we'd be good. But I'm not blaming him. Anyways. But that's it. Yeah, that's it for this episode. Like I said, look forward for part 2 of this episode, talking about Cody Rhodes and the other news that happened this last week or two. We'll talk about probably a little bit more about Vince, possibly about AEW and its announcement, and yeah, we'll go from there. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this with your friends so we can get more listens and plays and whatnot. But that's it for this episode of Thoughts on Wrestling. Peace. We're out.